All right, it looks like people are starting to flow into the room. Thank you for joining us and our conversation series episode, What Do Employees Want from Their Managers? I'm Melissa Munier, and I lead the marketing team here at Engage to Excel, and I'm joined by my colleague, Tamika Fagaro. She might be a familiar face to some of you as she hosts many of our online discussions. Tamika, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Melissa.
I'm excited for today's discussion, especially being a manager, and thrilled to introduce somebody that I know very well. He's an award-winning organizational psychologist. He's a researcher and consultant, and he just happens to be our very own chief scientific officer, not to mention an author who just released his second book, The Employee Centric Manager, which you can see behind me, which we're going to dig into today. Dr. Jack Wiley. Jack, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, Melissa. I'm excited about being with you.
Excellent. So before we get into the good stuff with your book, just a couple of reminders to our audience. We are recording this episode, and we will send you a link to the recording later this afternoon. All attendees are on mute, but if you would like to ask a question, which we encourage, is just use the chat button, chat feature at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to those at the end of the session. All right. Jack, let's get started. I think it would be beneficial to share with the audience first, how did you become a specialist in the field of people management?
Right. Well, I didn't start out to do that. I went to college with the idea that I would become a high school basketball coach and an English teacher. But over time, I started taking courses in psychology, which led to going on to graduate school in a field called organizational psychology. And that's what really led me into the people management field.
Nice. And then how did you begin your relationship with Engage to Excel and be part of our organization?
Right. As is common in a lot of organizational settings, I followed your CEO, Phil Stewart, to Engage to Excel. Phil and I had worked previously together at another organization for an extended period of time, had great success working together there. And so Phil contacted me about playing some specific roles that he needed filled at Engage to Excel. And it's been a great working relationship over the last 6 years.
It has, and I think you have worked with our team as well to help formulate the Trendicators research division, where we take a lot of your research and incorporate that into the assets that we produce that kind of tackle a lot of today's challenges in the workforce.
Right, exactly. So my role at Engage to Excel, I really think as being threefold. One, I head up the employee survey respect survey system process for Engage to Excel as we work with clients who are interested in conducting work experience and employee engagement surveys. But then we also do a significant amount of this R&D that you're talking about, regularly surveying working populations on topics of relevance and kind of immediate interest. And then we also are involved in releasing that information. And so there's a marketing component to what I do as well, working, Melissa, with you and your team.
Absolutely. And we enjoy it. So let's dig into your book. What would you say is unique about the research that you conducted for the book?
Right. So when I think about the book that was recently released, The Employee Centric Manager, I think there are three things about it that are particularly unique. One is that it's all entirely based on employee voice. So there's no historical leadership theory that this is founded on. It's entirely based on what employees told me they wanted from their manager. What were the most important things they wanted? So that's number one. Number two is that we went out to a worldwide representative sample of workers. So we have employees responding to the question, what do you most want from the manager for whom you work, from 27 countries around the world. So those countries represent about 85% of the world's gross domestic product. So it is, in essence, a universal statement about what employees most want. And I think the third component is that we started from scratch. This question had never been asked before. So while it's a very simple and straightforward question, what is the most important thing you want from your manager? in all of the research literature on the topic of leadership, this had not been presented before as a question. And so this was a unique opportunity to walk into a space that really hadn't been explored.
I find it interesting that that question has never, the last question there of what employees want hasn't been asked before, because you always hear that phrase or that statement that good employees leave bad managers. How have we not wanted to understand what the good things are that employees really like, and then help the managers that need improvement do better, which obviously your book gives some great examples of how that can happen. Tamika, I know you had a couple of questions that you wanted to ask Jack, so I'm
Yes.
going to turn it over to you for a minute.
Yeah, so Jack, I'm interested, and I'm sure others are. What does your research reveal? What do employees want from their managers?
Right, Tamika, that's sort of the fundamental question. And what I found out in asking this question to employees around the world was that when it was all said and done, there were 8 attributes that employees most wanted from their manager. 5 of those attributes we categorize as behaviors, because it has to do with what managers do to influence or respond to their employees. One of the attributes is a skill. So it's really a behavior that you're quite skilled at. And then 2 of the attributes are what you might call personal standards of conduct. They're values that employees want to reside within their manager. The behaviors, the 5 behaviors are as follows. The number 1 behavior is they wanted their manager to show support and understanding. And this is really about being there for the employee, listening to what the employee has to say, and providing them with support on their daily activities. Secondly, employees want from their managers recognition. So they want managers who are going to provide recognition for a job well done, for the commitment, loyalty, enthusiasm that employees bring. The third characteristic, which is kind of interesting because we hadn't seen this in historical leadership research, is that employees were saying they wanted to be treated with dignity and respect. And what they were really talking about is that they wanted their managers to view them as people who were there to make a contribution. They were adults, they could be counted upon, explain to them what it is you want them to do, and give them the opportunity to do that. That's showing them respect and treating them with dignity. The fourth element was to communicate clear performance expectations. So I think we understand what that means, but it's employees wanting their manager to define what performance success is. What is it that you want me to do? What do you regard as successful performance? And then the 5th behavior was rewarding performance contributions. Not a surprise here. This is the quid pro quo. Employees bring their talents, their skills, abilities to the job, and they want to be rewarded fairly. But when they said they wanted to be rewarded fairly, they meant not only in dollars and cents, in the compensation sense, but they also wanted opportunities for training and development in response to the good performance that they were providing. So those were the 5 behaviors. Now, the one thing they wanted their managers to be skilled at, and they were very clear about this, is that I want to work for a manager who's good at problem solving and decision making. So this is about managers not dithering and not making a decision, or making a decision that really doesn't think through the implications. They want to be on a winning team, and they want to work for a manager who's good at solving problems, knocking down obstacles, helping them get on with the work that they're there to accomplish. So that's the one skill. Now, the 2 values are interesting again, because like the behavior of treating employees with dignity and respect, these 2 values aren't typically found in leadership theories. But employees were very clear. They said they wanted their manager to, first of all, be fair and just. So this is treating employees equitably, fairly, kind of by the book and in a standard way. And then secondly, they wanted their manager to be honest and trustworthy. This is the old walk the talk kind of concept. I want to believe in what they have to say. I want to be able to trust them in terms of their honesty and their integrity. And so those 2 values, interestingly enough, that represented about 40% of what employees most want from their immediate manager. So these were important topics in terms of what employees want.
Nice. And how have the expectations employees have on their managers changed since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Right. COVID-19 pandemic, that has thrown a lot of things into turmoil. And it is kind of interesting. I was conducting research right in the midst of the pandemic. And I actually asked employees having already known what employees most want from their managers, I asked employees, what do you need from your manager now, more so than you did before? And they told me that there were three things at the top of the list. One is that they needed increased support for accomplishing their daily activities. In other words, thrown into some disarray, they needed to make sure that their managers were properly supporting them in getting the work done. It might involve reassigning certain work tasks or providing additional resources to getting the job done. That was number one. Number two, and not probably surprisingly, employees said that they wanted their manager to ensure that they were working in safe conditions. Making sure that they enforced safety requirements, because a lot of them, essential workers, were in positions where, they were putting themselves in jeopardy by virtue of the jobs that they were being asked to perform. And then the third thing that was at the top of the list was increased flexibility. Give me more flexibility if I'm, for example, if I've gone from an office environment to a remote location, give me more flexibility over the hours I'm working, so that I can deal with now the new conditions of that form the reality of my life. It may be childcare, it may be my children's education, it might be supporting elderly parents, what have you. But all of a sudden, the pandemic thrust a lot of people into a situation where they had more demands placed on them than they had resources available. And so they were looking to their manager for more flexibility in how they approached their work.
And Jack, I'll jump in, and I can definitely say that as a manager leading a team, and Tamika, I know you're on my team. We needed to kind of, so we all supported each other, I think, and we were flexible, and we all understood, we were kind of thrown into something that nobody had experienced, but it was making sure that we were all, feeling good, as well as my leadership was the same way. So I definitely see where that research had, in real life, kind of showed exactly what happened when we went through this, and still going through it for some extent. So Jack, in the book, I've been fortunate enough to read it, and I consider it, just like what a lot of people have been talking about, is a handbook for anyone who is a leader of people. Besides getting copies of the book, which is not a shameless plug, but just, what are some tips that companies who could be on this call and listening can do to help their managers be more employee centric?
Right. I think that's a great question. I think of this probably in four areas, and there's probably nothing particularly profound about this, but first of all, you have to create awareness. Do managers really understand what employees want? I have some additional research that shows that in some cases, managers do have a good handle on what employees want, but in other areas, they don't. For example, managers, when I asked 1,000 managers representing the entire workforce of the United States in the middle of last year, what employees most wanted from them, only 1% indicated that employees most wanted from them recognition. So that's a big disconnect, because
Yes.
a very significant portion of our sample of employees identified that as their most important one. And managers really underestimated as well how much support and understanding employees wanted from them. Just being accessible, listening to employees, being able to help them in the accomplishment of their work on a day-by-day basis. So support and understanding and recognition are two things that managers significantly underestimate in terms of what employees want and need from them. So creating awareness is number one. And we can do that also through measurement. We can put in systems within organizations. Organizations typically have 360-degree feedback systems, or upward feedback systems that are sometimes called 180-degree upward feedback systems. If you can build systems around the framework of what employees most want, then you're going to get a measure of how successful you are. And if you think about extending that over the entire organization, That's going to create, in effect, a training needs analysis of how effective your managers are today in providing employees with what they most want. Now, naturally, from an HR systems point of view, that can flow right into management training and development, but it would be courses around fulfilling what employees most want, because as we also display in the book, these employee-centric managers are the ones who are enjoying the highest levels of performance. So we can train people up to become better at this. I think another thing that organizations can do, and again, this flows into the systems thinking, is that rewarding managers who do a great job of displaying these attributes, which are going to generate higher levels of engagement and retention and commitment and enthusiasm for the work. And then I think another thing that organizations can do is that they can spotlight for their managerial ranks those people who are known to be really effective in terms of being an employee-centric manager, because these become models that other employees can follow in terms of how to really show up in this way that's going to generate that higher level of commitment from employees.
I would agree, lead by example, and what better way it is to have somebody who does it really well be that person.
Exactly.
I agree. So given the current talent shortage that we're experiencing and the great resignation that we keep hearing about, what advice do you have for organizations to help increase engagement and retention?
Right. So, and again, all of these things are coming together. The great resignation, the talent shortage, the still dealing with COVID pandemic and the consequences of that. We've known, I think we've had a good handle for 20 years, I'd say, on what really drives engagement and retention. And when we think scientifically about the drivers of engagement and retention, they don't all reside in one place. For example, from senior leaders within an organization, employees have to have a sense of trust and confidence in their senior leaders, that they have a strategy that's going to work and that they're keeping employees updated on how that strategy is working. But from their direct managers, employees, the drivers of engagement really sort of boil down to, is the manager recognizing me? Is the manager demonstrating respect toward me? These things are critical in engagement and retention. But also related to that, and something we've spoken to already, is the opportunity for career development. Do I see an opportunity within my company? Is it a good company? Are they winning? Are they growing? Are they expanding? Is that going to create opportunities for me? And then finally, not surprisingly, I mean, this is sort of the fundamental, we have to put people into positions that are a good match for their skills and abilities, because that's what's going to jazz them up. That's what's going to make them excited about their work. That's what's going to lead to that display of discretionary effort. So these are the things that are fundamental that have to continue to be in operation in order to be resistance to that temptation to leave my current organization and go work elsewhere. If employees are having a great work experience where they are, supported managers where they are, then you reduce the potential for them being enticed to go work someplace else. People will stay in an organization whose value system they appreciate, whose senior leaders they have confidence in, and for direct managers who treat them with that dignity, that respect, and provide that recognition that they're looking for, as long as they see a pathway for their own growth and development.
And I agree. And you made a point to say about putting the right people in the right position with the right skills. And, I've worked in other jobs other than just here at Engage to Excel, and I've seen people put into positions and it just wasn't the right position for them. It was almost like they just didn't even consider what skills they had and what skills they needed in order to do the job well. And I think that's so important. And I think it's actually overlooked many times in a lot of organizations.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, having interesting, mentally challenging, exciting work, I mean, that's the fundamental. If we're not connecting there, then the job becomes more transactional. I'm doing the work in exchange for pay, but I'm not really engaged in the work.
Yeah, exactly. You want to be engaged. I want to come to work and enjoy what I'm doing and work and with the people that I work with. So
yeah, absolutely.
Good suggestions. So I know you already went through the 8 keys that the managers can master to be the best leader, but is there a short list that you have that managers that are listening right now could do to be more effective?
Right. There is a short list. So if let's put it this way, if there were only 3 things that I would ask managers to focus on, these are the 3. Number 1, listen to your employees, which really sort of suggests a participative style of decision making. Get input from others, make sure they're engaged in the work. You're also going to build a lot more commitment to the decisions you do make when you listen to your employees and operate in that fashion. That's number 1. Number 2 is be good at problem solving and decision making. Don't let roadblocks to the accomplishment of the work just stay indefinitely. Don't drag your feet in making important decisions. And when you do make decisions, think through the implications. What could be the negative consequences? What could be the blowback that your team is going to have to deal with if it's a bad decision? And learn from experience. Employees don't expect you to be perfect, but they also don't expect you to repeat the same mistake time and again. And then the third piece is something we've already addressed, and it's so critical to the employee-manager relationship, and that is recognize your employees. Don't take credit for their ideas, recognize them, put them in the spotlight in the way in which they want to be recognized. So you have to know about them and know what it is that really is going to provide that sense of recognition. But that's really something that's so critical to all of us. We want to be seen as competent and being recognized for our contributions and our enthusiasms and our passions. That builds that sense of competence and releases additional energy to continue on with the work and provide that discretionary effort that takes things to the next level.
I think that last one is really, really important. And I think probably, I mean, all 8 are. I think the 3 that you have for the short list that you recommend makes sense. But that last one about just giving other people that recognition for what they've done, I think people just want to know that they're valued, and no matter the idea, whether it's large or small, that there's a purpose behind it. So I love those 3 shortlisted keys to work on. I'm going to see, Tamika, do we have any questions from the audience?
Yes, we do have 2 questions that came in. So Jack, the first question is, do you have any statistics from your research to support your suggestion that employee-centric managers oversee more productive teams?
Right. I mean, that's a really good question, because that sort of gets to the heart of whether or not this is a valid theory. I mean, it's one thing to say this is what employees most want, and to suggest that people should show up in a way that displays what employees most want. But the real question is, if you do that, what can you expect as a consequence? So it is interesting because over the last 3 or 4 years, I've been able to collect data, ratings on managers to the extent to which they display these employee-centric manager attributes. And I've also been able to compare that to their team's performance level. And so this puts me in a position where I can take managers and categorize them as top-rated, medium-rated, and bottom-rated managers on the employee-centric manager attributes, and then look at that against how their teams are performing. So on a scale of 1 to 100, what I find is that top-rated managers, in terms of displaying these attributes, have team performance scores at 99%. Bottom-rated managers have team performance scores at 39%. So you can see the drastic difference. There is a correlation that is very direct, very obvious, very significant. Managers who display these attributes happen to be managers of teams that are performing at the very top level. Managers who are poorly rated on these attributes are managing teams who aren't performing that well. And it's not surprising, because in a typical organization, and of course we realize organizations differ, so I'm making a general statement, but in a typical organization, there's probably about 15% of managers who aren't performing at a great level. And it may be they're in the wrong slot. It may be that they didn't get the training they needed. That may be that they're not cut out to be responsible for managing others. I found in my research as well that across the United States, we have 24 million people managers. On average, people managers have only received up to 4 hours of training at most. 70% of managers in the United States today have either had no training as a people manager, or it's been capped at 4 hours. So we may not be doing a great job of putting people in positions where they can be successful. So that's a real problem as well. But managers who are doing a great job on displaying these attributes are enjoying a lot of success in terms of their team performance.
Great.
So second question, Jack, is why do you think there's such a disconnect between what employees want from their managers and what managers think they want?
Yeah, this sort of goes back a little bit to the conversation from before, but something caused me to want to find out what managers thought employees want. So I did this special research project in the middle of last year as a run-up to the writing of my book. And it goes back to those two really big disconnects. When I asked employees what they wanted, pretty clear. When I asked employees what managers thought employees wanted, two big disconnects. And those disconnects were around recognition. Managers completely underestimated how much that was important to employees, and around support and understanding, which is sort of the basic fundamental relationship that employees have with managers. In fact, that was the number one attribute for employees, and only about half of the same percent of managers as employees identified that as the most important attribute that employees wanted. So two big disconnects there. I think this goes back to awareness, and that's a real issue.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I as you guys were both talking and the questions came in, I have one question left for you, Jack. Now, we focused on the manager. So what do what employees want in their manager? Do you have any research on what managers want in an employee? Because I'd be curious.
Yeah. So that's a great question, and we've begun to take a look at that as well.
Okay, good.
By asking managers, tell us what is the most important thing you want from employees, and in a sense, it boils down to sort of three things. I want my subordinate employees to be hardworking, to display a good work ethic, to be responsible, and to be reliable. Number two, I want them to be skilled. I want employees who are looking to really become effective at the job and continue to grow and to develop. Number three, I want them to be effective in communication, particularly upward communication. So if they have an issue, they bring it to me, and they help me understand what the issue is so that we can get it resolved. So it's sort of interesting that it really has more to do with kind of personal values and how you communicate with one another, more so even than it does a great skill base. I mean, obviously people have to be put into jobs in which they can be effective, or they can grow to become more effective. But so much of it has to do with the interpersonal relationships and the sense of values reflected in work ethic, in reliability, in responsibility, in perseverance to get the job done.
I wasn't expecting you to say that you had research on that, but now I'm eager to see when that gets released. So I know we're coming up on 2:30 here. I'm just going to share really quick my screen, which Jack is just your book. But where people can purchase a copy if they are interested, you can go to our website, engagetoexcel.com/ECM. Tamika has also put that in the chat bar, but also if you want to follow Jack on social media, LinkedIn is probably the best place, and we have his profile in there. I want to thank both Tamika for joining us and asking questions, and Jack, obviously, for your insights and sharing what employees want from their managers. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks so much for the opportunity. Great to be with you.
Thank you for everybody who attended. And again, we will be sending out a copy of this recording later today. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.